Nah, it'll be fine.
The Consuming Shadow is a Lovecraftian roguelite, with elements of dungeon crawler and survival horror. You play as a scholar, coming to an understanding that an unknowable interdimensional force will enter our plane of existence in 60 hours in Stonehenge. Armed with an oddly specific knowledge of the arcane and a sidearm with a magazine clipped more than your average Byzantine eunuch, you get into your car and move out to save the world. The thing is, you have no clue what you are doing and what you are facing. You do know that messing with the powers beyond is perilous at best. Your goals are simple. Find clues regarding the ancient invading the world, obtain knowledge of the banishment ritual that will prevent the cataclysm, and survive. The game was made by Benjamin Richard Croshaw and doesn't appear to be that well known. And a lot of you will probably say, well, of course, because who the fuck is Benjamin? Wait, that Yahtzee? The Zero Punctuation Yahtzee? Why, yes, one and the same. But yeah, despite the author behind the game isn't that well known. Most people I mentioned this title to seem not to know what I'm talking about. Which is a shame, although I might have an idea why. Actually, now that I think of it, I remember that I had this game for years, but strangely, I don't remember buying it. And trust me, I remember spending money on games. This hurts me deeply in my wallet and leaves emotional scars. Let's start by examining the visuals. The Consuming Shadow certainly has some striking visuals, although not entirely in the sense the adjective is usually used. I've seen them described as simplistic, primitive even. As much as I cannot in the right mind deny that, there is more to visuals than it seems at first glance, but later about that. Where do I even start? Okay, let's say the dungeon crawling portion. The dungeons are generated randomly from top-down perspective. However, the dungeons themselves are presented as cross-sections of corridors. We explore abandoned houses, decrepit construction sites, office buildings, and shady warehouses, and each environment is distinct, yet not distracting from what players should focus on. Items that a player can interact with stand out from backgrounds, and I honestly doubt anyone with working eyesight would miss them in normal circumstances. The creatures, player character, and dropped items are distinct from other visuals in being Plato's wet dream. The one with people trapped in a cave, raised to believe the shadows on the walls are reality. What I tried to say is that inhabitants of this layer are represented by shadow figures. Additionally, player's character is surrounded by a light of limited range, obscuring most of the room you are currently in. One could joke that this is a way of masking how shit the graphics are, if not for the fact that UI elements exist. But no, actually, the limited sight enforced this way works wonders for creating a foreboding atmosphere and supporting the fear of unknown, the purest form of horror, one could argue. Fittingly, the creatures of a shadow you will encounter are mostly inhuman.
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the fuck is that?
Emitting unsettling noises and leaning heavily on body horror. However, the aesthetic of shadows works very well in suggesting the monstrosity, letting you, the player, fill in the gaps, whether you like it or not. Moreover, the simplicity of design allows for easier distinction of enemy types, most of the time, and more importantly, making the character we control easily distinguishable. So, the directly related to the core gameplay part of the visuals is solid and well designed, if very simple and on the budget. By the way, I find it hilarious that the game made by someone who coined the term PC Master Race is running on 20 frames per second most of the time. It doesn't bother me, mind you, simply gives me a good old-fashioned chuckle. I believe that the overall cheapness of the visuals can be mostly blamed on the UI. Who the fuck uses pure red? Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely functional. Shame it sticks out like a sore thumb and takes, like, 30% of the screen. I get why the decisions were made, and I can't propose anything immediately better. It's just that those two elements together clash, putting off people. Other than that, I really believe that the visual design is actually really well done, and aside from UI, I have but a single issue with it. No worries, we'll come back to it. The audio of the game is a little rough on the edges, but I think it works very well in the context. Creature's sounds are, according to Yahtzee himself, sounds made with just his mouth. As someone who has to live with very weak teeth and constant decay, I've always known that human mouth is disgusting, but Jesus Christ. The only issue I could think of is that they could use better mixing, but it's not that much of a problem. The game's soundtrack is mostly ambient, bar a few exceptions. Tracks consist mostly of 30 to 40 seconds droning loops, and combined with the art style, get under your skin easily. In a good way. Music inside the dungeons keeps you unsettled and tense at all times. It's excellent in its simplicity. There is one track specifically, and those who played the game before will know what I'm talking about, that when starts, immediately amplifies your anxiety to panic levels. It's a testament of how good all the elements of the game gel together. The atmosphere of dread is thick, superb, and it doesn't need jump scares to be scary. The bottom line of my frenetic rambling is, the presentation of the game might give impression of being on the cheap side, but don't be fooled, the design behind it is really tight. The goal of the game is performing the banishment ritual at Stonehenge. Player has 60 in-game hours in order to accomplish it. Banishment ritual consists of a combination of 4 runes that must be cast exactly in order to achieve a desired result. The ritual itself is discovered piece by piece as rewards for completing the objectives of dungeons, and it's randomly generated at the start of each playthrough. Things get complicated when you realize one of the runes making the ritual is referred to as God's Rune. Each playthrough creates a sort of a pantheon of 3 ancients, each with its distinct set of information. The name, the rune associated with it, the color, the aspect, and the relations between the gods. In order to accomplish the goal, player must gather clues and deduce which one of the 3 ancients is the invader, and which of the 5 runes represents him, and thus should be used in the ritual. The deductive gameplay is really well designed, and each clue is given through finding notes with bits of lore. Those are, of course, procedurally generated, filled with information appropriate for the playthrough. Once you find and read the note, the conclusions are recorded in a notebook, to which you have free access at nearly all times. Notebook also allows you to fill a chart that helps the investigation immensely. The player is expected to use their brain, and I like it a lot. However, the investigation isn't the only element of gameplay on hand here, because you can't banish the ancient if you're fucking dead. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the review, this game has elements of survival horror.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Your survival is determined by your health points, naturally. In order to defend yourself, you are given a handgun, silhouette of which is reminiscent of Glock 17. The 3 ammunition types you can acquire are standard rounds, natch, hollow points, that deal increased damage, and armor-piercing rounds that go through several enemies at once. Because the Lovecraftian bingo card won't fill itself, we also have a sanity meter. Your sanity is most prominently reduced by escaping the rooms with monsters still alive inside. This presents player a choice: fight and risk injury, or flee and reduce your sanity. Unlike health, sanity can be reduced to 0 without ending a playthrough, but you don't want to do it. Lowering your sanity starts triggering a decently big variety of sanity effects, whose impact ranges from distracting to lethal. I will not disclose them here, except for one, because it ties to a complaint I mentioned earlier. Gentle viewer, conserve as your photosensitivity warning. Start. Yahtzee. What the fuck? Thank fuck I'm not epileptic, but I do suffer from certain kind of photosensitivity linked to being on the spectrum. I would like to give you an estimate of how that feels, but nothing comes to my mind. All I can say is that it's deeply unpleasant, bordering on torturous. Yahtzee, if you see this, I beg of you, add an option to turn that one sanity effect off. If you need a test subject, I can fucking help you, just please do something about it. In Protagonist's car, you can find a first aid kit with which to restore your health points. It's got limited capacity, naturally, but it can be refilled at safe cities, if you can afford it. The sanity, on the other hand, well, you can inject recreational drugs.
I do cocaine!
Speaking of injuries, in addition to health points damage, player can randomly sustain status effects as a result of harm. Broke a leg? You can still run, but good luck with not going bonkers from pain of abusing your wrecked limb. Broken arm? Your gun's recoil will make sure the jagged bone hits the spot in all the wrong ways. Bleeding? Congratulations on your epiphany of being a sufferer of hemophilia. And if you see a hungered Peter Steele, run. Having an anxiety attack? Your wrists, against your will, decide they are sick of your pedestrian gun shooting, instead choosing to chase their dream of becoming Mr. Fisto, the living vibrator. Runes aren't there just to cast banishment ritual, by the way. In a playthrough, you can learn and cast spells. Those can be learned randomly, usually by means of acquiring a piece of lore unlocking the incantation. The runes making them are generated with each new playthrough. Or you could try casting at random, if you dare. Spellcasting is powerful, but comes at the cost. Each cast will reduce your sanity, something that can't be so easily remedied. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. With how low your ammo capacity is and spellcasting not guaranteed accessible, you have a third option to fall back to. Melee, which is wimpy, has short range, and is risky. But it's viable if you are willing to learn how to handle each enemy you encounter. Each playthrough grants you experience based on the minions you killed, dungeons you visited, clues you found, etc. Accumulating experience leads to leveling up, and with each level after first, you are granted a birth star. Birth stars can be placed on the night sky, and their relation to constellations presented will grant you bonuses. As a matter of fact, if you play long enough, this mechanic turns the game from survival horror to a breeze. Each constellation gives a certain bonus, and the closer you put a birth star to its center, the bigger that bonus will be. With constellations close to each other, you will actually notice an overlap in benefits. Every time you start a new playthrough, both constellations present and their positioning on the firmament is randomized. That is true. However, with enough birth stars, it's very easy to accumulate stupid high starting bonuses. For all the praise I give design of the Consuming Shadow, I think this is an issue. The balance. It's fucking balked after a while. I'm not sure where the issue lies exactly, but I will hazard a guess that it's either the maximum bonus value of certain constellations, the speed with which you gain birth stars, or, well, both. I mentioned earlier that you have limited time to save the world. First of all, you will eventually find out that passage of time doesn't stop. Additionally, the less time there is to banish the ancient, the more intense the dungeons become, more complex, more difficult. Running out of time results in an instant game mode. In safe towns, you can visit a shady medical practitioner who allows you to refill your medkit if need be, acquire drugs, or remove negative status effects mentioned earlier.
For a price.
Save towns also make it possible to search for supplies. First of all, you need to spend an hour to find a bloke who will sell. After all, this is Great Britain, a land of butter knives requiring a license, being the harbingers of doom and slaughter they are. Also, coincidentally, the first weapon of choice for corn berserkers, should they ever lay their foul hands on one. As a reward for this sacrifice, you gain access to some ammo for your pistol, and one of the equipable items. Equipable items increase your chances of survival by mitigating some of the mechanics. Player can equip 3 of them at the same time. Now that I mention it, here comes a bit where I complain about the fucking UX. You're gonna witness weird behavior. The interaction rules are super rigid and can occasionally be frustrating, because once you mess up, you keep messing up your equipment until you bugger off from the equipment screen and reset the state. Not of your equipment, that is, of the selection process. And never forget, you are always under time limit. Who does that? Shut up, we don't slander our great dead in here.
16 times the detail.
Motherfuck! There is another use for items other than equipping them for bonuses. Let's talk about random events. When traveling in your car, random events may occur. Most of them involve meeting other people that struggle to go through this whole apocalypse thing, at least on the surface. Do I want to buy drugs from this homeless weirdo? Do I give this twitchy guy a lift? Do I attend the sermon in this chapel in the middle of nowhere? The effects range wildly from encounter to encounter. Some results include restoring your sanity, gaining money, getting involved in a scrap in the middle of the road, but also stuff like having your car hijacked, damaged, and then ditched in the middle of a forest. An outcome that costs you time and actually slows down your vehicle. In some cases, however, owning an equipable item allows a player to select an option that is equivalent to FTL faster than light's blue option. In certain events, player is presented with 3 choices, 2 of them being the usual Russian roulette ordeal, plus a highlighted option that is only accessible if you have a certain item in your inventory. Choosing those highlighted special options grants player the best possible outcome. By the way, the writing in The Consuming Shadow is pretty goddamn good. It's consistent in how imposing it is. Even the text denoting calm serenity of safe place just has to insert a suggestion that it doesn't matter for shit in the long term if you screw up. Here, let me show you some bits.
The townsfolk are not immediately better off with the extermination of the creature behind their enslavement. There have been several murders and suicides already as the memories of their actions return. The best thing I can do for them now is leave them to heal. Reports have reached me of mysterious pests rising up from the ground at numerous places. They attack randomly, killing cats, stealing food and injuring people. It is clear that this is only the beginning of something terrible. It starts with petty nuisances, killing pets and ruining crops, and sooner or later it escalates to missing people being found half devoured. The patient has become irrationally terrified of the color yellow to the point that no progress can be made if I am wearing any garment of that color. A change of medication may be in order.
Why did you do it? I had thoughts and feelings and ambitions. Now, there's just the darkness, and my chest is cold where he shot me.
Oh no! Anyway,
Man, imagine if whoever sends those fucked up messages accidentally send them to your local radio broadcast instead. Couple of messages have come in. An individual known as T wanted to let us know that when my secretary came in this morning, I pictured her violated by 1,000 thorny limbs. I can't take much more of this waiting. I know exactly what you mean, T. In conclusion, would I recommend The Consuming Shadow? I believe yes. It's an enjoyable experience if you like Lovecraftian horror and games that challenge your analytical skills. If you search for a scary experience, well, first few hours could be scary, I suppose. Is it atmospheric and engaging? Definitely. Some of you probably noticed that I skimmed through a lot of stuff. Others, I left vague. This is because the title revels in being discovered on your own accord. is the strongest when you know as little as possible. The only vaguely major issue I can think of is the imbalanced power creep stemming from the mechanic of the birth stars. Seriously, the bonuses you can amass are staggering, especially those related to health and sanity capacities. The Consuming Shadow sure as hell isn't a looker, being a result of work of a single developer or not, but gameplay is tied to the rigor mortis pussy of a deceased nun. I am not apologizing. Is the game worth $10? That's a good question. I'd say that if you come from a place where economy is fucked, you might want to hold with purchase until a sale or something. If you have a stable job and your wallet isn't trying to light itself on fire in a protest against the abuse you put it through, I'd say go for it. Personally, I believe that games like The Consuming Shadow, games that play to the strength of its gameplay, should definitely be cherished and see financial success. It's heartrending to see something this good tank just because it doesn't look okay on screenshots, while trash like insert any of the 90% titles released since 2010 makes money no matter how soulless it is. Thank you for sticking around up to this point, gentle viewer. Have you played The Consuming Shadow? And if you did, what do you think about it? I'm genuinely interested to hear your opinion on this quite an interesting title. As most of my subscribers will attest, this video is different to my usual content. I'm pretty sure that this is my first video review, so I'm open to feedback on literally whatever, as I'm completely fucking green in this format. It was an interesting experience and I learned a lot from it. If this video gets an arbitrarily big amount of likes, beep boop, I'm a tuber, I will create and release another review. I also created a list of games that I could review in the future. The link will be in the description below. Special thanks to Crow, who helped me with writing the script. His feedback helped making the review digestible, concise, and not sounding like ramblings of a crazed bum. Special thanks and shout out to my Patreon supporters. Their help means a lot and allows me to use software that doesn't immediately make me want to go for the Cobain special. It was their decision, Vox Populi Vox Dei style, to focus on this review as my next release. They also saw the video earlier. Have a good one, and see you in the next one.